my veins. Blue and one, I red, white, and blue in my brain. I'm bulldog born. Bulldog, that's my breed. I was born to follow where the bulldogs lead.
Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to introduce, you know it, it's Dougie Hawkins, the King of the West.
Matty, how are you, mate? Lovely to see you, brother. Lovely to see you.
Indeed.
What's going on, Matty? Who are we going to talk about?
Well, Dougie, it's one of your old teammates, believe it or not, from the 90s. It's Big
90s.
Baz Barry Stanfield.
Big Bazza. Big Baz. Gee whiz. Barry Stanfield. Geez, before we touch on our footy, our Bulldog stuff, did he go to Adelaide?
He did. So after the 96 season, there were some injuries that he had, and 97 was that massive year where we made it, right to the end, and we ended up playing Adelaide in the prelim, and it was pretty much down to the last kick of the game. So Barry was in their colours. And
did he play in that game, Matty? Can you recall? I don't think he did he?
He didn't. No, he was up in the stand. He was probably right behind the Tony Liberatore kick in the Ponsford, watching it sail through for a goal, I think.
Yeah, no, Matty, go and turn it. What year did he arrive, Matty, at the Bulldogs?
87 in the under-19s, and he played under-19s and reserves for 3 years, but he actually played his very first game straight after the fight back in round 1 of 1990 with Chris Grant.
He did too. Him and Grant, he played their first game together against St Kilda. We got beaten. We got absolutely belted. Yeah, we did too. I reckon we all played the game 10 times. We all... this is after the merger with Fitzroy and the fight back and survival. And I reckon when we went out in the ground, we were shot. We just felt like we'd everything, the emotion of the day as well, and the whole lot. And Big Bazza, he could play forward, he could go back. He was a good mark, Matty, very strong hands, ran straight at the footy. I can remember this. I remember this. 92 semi-final, we're playing St Kilda out at Waverley. And there was a bit of momentum. St Kilda, even though we're probably 3 or 4 or 5 goals up, the momentum was starting to come from a bloke called Nicky Winmar.
Right.
And I remember it clearly. It was in the forward pocket in St Kilda's end. He got caught in a sandwich between Barry Stanfield and Simon Atkins. Simon Atkins came that way, and Barry and busted his collarbone. Barry broke Nicky Winmar's collarbone.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, remember, Matty? You don't remember it?
No, I don't remember that at all.
Yeah, you asked him. You asked him about that. I remember it clearly. He came in. He was on the bench at that. He come on and off the bench a little bit, and he come in and he just straight into him. Fair bump, fair hip and shoulder. Broke his collarbone. Nicky Winmar. And they were coming, and then he was the bloke who was getting them to go. They're never going to get us. Crackers, Keenan and Reynolds did a great job, and Stewie Lowe.
Yeah.
They're never going to get us. Chris Grant played a game that you would not believe of his age. 19, he kicked 5. Yeah. He was just feeding him in another lead that day. He was just sensational. Danny Dayray kicked his 3 or 4. Dougie got his 3 or 3, gave a couple away. And Libber was Libber, and Scotty Wine was Scotty Wine. McPherson was Stevie Mack, and Bernard Tui run off half back, run into him. Pretty good little side, wasn't it? So Barry Stanfield, the Big Bazza. He was fantastic, Matty. And again, he could go forward, he can go back. He could go in the ruck. He could ruck. I mean, even though he wasn't 6'6", probably 6'4", Matty, 6'3", 6'4", Big Baz.
Yeah, 193 centimetres. I'm not sure what that works out to.
Not in our terms, yeah. But mate, it's just a terrific bloke too. Real bloke, good bloke to have around the footy club, mate. Very laid back. Nothing was ever a problem for Big Bazza. But his footy ability was really good. He's a lovely kick. He kick a goal, kick the ball long, and again, genuine tough. Ran straight at the footy. What did he play, Matty?
Yeah, 98 games he played. So from 1990 to 96, that's the 7 seasons in the seniors. And then I think he played probably about 20 games down at the Crows.
Yeah, so, mate, Barry Stanfield, very loved by the Bulldog people. They loved him. They warmed to him. Because you know what? He was just a likeable, lovable bloke. He was a fantastic bloke. And he could actually play footy. Good overhead. Can kick both feet if he had to. Being a natural right footer. But genuine bloke and tough and real good teammate to play footy with. You'd be like to be in the trenches with Barry Stanford. Let me tell you, he wouldn't let you down. He'd be terrific.
Well, love that, and I know that he went back to the
Fish Creek, did he?
Valley, and to Gippsland, sorry, and he ended up winning the best and fairest in the comp in his first year back. I think it might have been early 2000s. He kicked 11 in his first game, sitting in the goal square, and then just got on a roll.
They wouldn't be able to stop him, Matty. If he played in the goal square, they wouldn't be able to stop him. He was too strong, too good. Where is the big fish? I wonder where he is these days. I've lost count. I've lost track of him, the fish.
He's up in Queensland.
Is he? What, Maroochydore or the Gold Coast?
Might be Gold Coast. I'll have to ask him. Yeah, he's
okay, the Gold Coast, the old fish. Hey, sitting back there drinking Petey Coladas around the swim pool. No, Matty, when you speak to him, say he's one of my favourite blokes. Really good fella, genuine bloke. He was a country boy, you know what I mean? Just a real down-to-earth. What you see is what you get. He was fantastic.
Absolutely love that. And Dougie, I can hear him knocking.
Knocking again. See a fish. The hawk. See a fish.
Thanks, Dougie.
Good on you, Matty.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome to Inside the Kennel, Barry Stanfield.
How you going, Matty? Nice to be here.
Indeed, Baz. We're absolutely delighted to have you. And we're going to start, as we start with all our podcasts, by asking you, how would you describe yourself as a player?
Oh, listen, I was a bit of a battler, I suppose. I was. It's a funny thing, you know, because you talk about through my career, and you played against some of the best in the game. So I think I was probably just privileged to be on the park with them some days. But no, on other days I held my own and racked up a few games.
Certainly did. 98 games for the Doggies, so just too shy of having a father and daughter-son connection. So hopefully that we can petition at some point and get some of those night games for you.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting one. I mean, injuries probably cost me there a fair bit, but you know that's life, isn't it? You know, it's I'm not the first, and I won't be the last that failed to qualify under that. But yeah, it would have been nice to have played 100. But it was just one of those things that when I tore my Achilles, that was the end of the season there. So.
Okay, we'll get to that, Baz, no doubt about it. But let me take you back to the beginning to start. You're a Gippsland boy growing up, and you were just a stone throw away from the Roughhead and the Wallace family. So was there an early connection with the Bulldogs then?
Oh, well, as other guys you've spoken to have probably indicated that we were in the Bulldog zone, so there was it was sort of split a little bit. Some guys that I went to school with ended up at Hawthorn, and others went through to the Bulldogs. So it was quite a number of players that came out of Gippsland, through that late 80s period, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've had a look at Fish Creek. We've driven through there. There's not much of a township. Was it growing up in the junior sort of leagues? Were there enough players to actually formulate a team in your age group?
Yeah, listen, Fish Creek Football Club's a remarkable football club. To be honest, it's a township, and it's a dairy farming area. So whilst the sign when you drive into the town, I think it had a population sign on it of 201. It hasn't changed, mind you, for in my lifetime. So. But it was a district. So where I grew up was we're about 5 or 6 k's out of Fish Creek, and grew up on a dairy farm there. So it was that area, and at that football club we had there were seniors, reserves, thirds or under 18s, and then a fourth team which was under 15s. So. Really strong through all of those grades. Fish Creek, they've won an enormous amount of premierships, over time through each of the grades, and I think and even last year they I think they recorded their 37th senior flag. So it was so it's pretty amazing.
Well, that's incredible. I would not have picked that in a million years.
Yeah. Like when you talk to people about it, it's they're always quite surprised. But it was a club that's rich in history. Through the 60s, they won 11 of 13 flags. through that period of time. It was quite amazing, and a really, really strong football club and a strong district. And the football club was the centre of the town. So, it was one of those things that, if you went to the football on Saturday, you went there not only to play and whether it be football or netball, it was everyone socialised there. So that's where you caught up with everyone, at the footy on weekends.
Yeah, well, Ricky Kennedy was from Traralgon, as was Jeff Jennings, and the Cordy brothers. They've spoken about that feeling of community and how much the footy sort of clubs are central to that. And you clearly felt that at Fish Creek.
Yeah, that was the thing. It was unlike, I've got my boy now who's 16, and he's playing all sorts of sports. Back in those days, it was a football club in winter and the cricket club in summer, and that was pretty much it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so let's think about this. The mid-'80s came around, and you were representing the Victorian schoolboys. So obviously, you caught the eye of the Bulldogs very early on. And I understand in 1986 you were invited down to have a run in the under-19s. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. I went down there in those days because of the zone. There was a thing called permits, and you could play. I think you were allowed to play 6 or 8 games or something like that on permits, and. So I went. I think I might have played a game in late in 1985 in the under-19s, and then I played a number of games in '86 in the under-19s, and then I remember having Gary Merrington and Gary O'Sullivan, who were the recruiters at Footscray at that time, sitting in the lounge room at home and trying to convince Mum and Dad to let me come to Melbourne and go to school and be involved with Footscray on a permanent basis. But they thought best and thought that my place was better served still finishing school in the country and obviously helping out on the farm. So when I was playing down there on permits, it was go to school on or through the week, and then on Friday catch the train or the bus into Melbourne. And either Gary Merrington or Gary O'Sullivan would pick me up, and normally stay at one of their places, and then play football on the Saturday. And then normally Mum and Dad would come down on the Saturday and watch. And and I did that for, as I said, however many games you're allowed to play on permit before that you reached a limit.
Wow. So what was it like then for a young man to be, still in his school uniform, basically coming down, training and being surrounded by these league stars? You would have had Dougie Hawkins, Terry Wallace, Peter Foster, Choco McGuinness, all these amazing players. Was it overwhelming?
To a degree, but I will say, I was involved in the under-19s at that point, so the under-19s were a little bit separated from the senior group, but that you still walk into the change rooms and Hawk would walk through the rooms, and that sort of thing. So amazing as a young guy to be able to do that.
Yeah, and look, I understand that you're a forward. I was just flicking through some old footy records in my collection the other day, and I was jolted to see your name right at the pointy end of the goal kicking table in 1988. So obviously you fancied a goal in your early days.
Yeah, when I went to the Bulldogs, the under-19s, I pretty much played centre half forward.
Right. And you obviously got on the end of a fair few goals. So was there a pretty strong midfield in the under-19s and reserves at that time?
Yeah. Listen, we had a reasonable team, and Nigel Callett was in that team, and Nigel was a really good kicker of the footy, so he was always good to get on the end of. But it was a reasonably strong team, and it was back in those days that competition, the under-19 competition was a really good comp, and in a lot of games you played early, and then went reserves and then through to the seniors. So
beautiful. Well, you must have impressed, because I understand that you were selected in one of the night series matches in the seniors in 1988. How did you go?
Yeah, it was an interesting one. Mick Malthouse was coach, and so I'd done all of pre-season with the senior group, and then and got selected in that what was the night series, and listen, I didn't touch the ball too many times, but it was a great experience. I remember just even doing pre-season that year in '89, and you're doing the whole pre-season, with guys like you mentioned before, with Doug Hawkins and Tony McGuinness, and there was Rick Kennedy obviously was there, Steve Wallace, Brian Royal. So fantastic names and fantastic players.
Absolutely. Now, you mentioned Mickey Malthouse just then. I don't imagine he was a very tactile coach, but was he able to give you a bit of a roadmap into how to be successful? Was he a nurturing coach? Was he a communicative one?
Listen, Mick back in those days as a young fella was, he was pretty tough, and he had that aura about him, and no doubt through his career he mellowed and he became more of a communicator with players than probably he was back in the early days, and I can only speak for myself, and that I was a young lad at that point, and he gave me an opportunity. He was harsh when you made an error. He certainly told you about it. But that, what do they say about it makes you stronger. So it was all I look back on those years now and think that certainly Mick played a part in making you recognise you needed to work for things.
Brilliant, brilliant. So I imagine by the end of 1989, you probably felt that you'd served your apprenticeship. Your career was ready to launch and move into the big league, I imagine. But turmoil struck the club, didn't it, with the merger? What are your recollections, Barry, of that time? And did it feel that the dream might be over?
Oh, absolutely, it did. It's as you said, I'd come through and played a couple of years of under-19s with a spattering of reserve grade games, and then you get to '89 and they announce, I think I've still got the document here now that they gave us all to say that the club was going to merge with Fitzroy, and so you honestly you didn't know where that left you. Does that mean that you would make the list? Did that mean that your footy career at that level was finished? And then just amazing the events that took place, from that point forward.
Yeah. Do you recall the point where the club was saved and Terry Wheeler was appointed? Did he contact you and speak to you and say that you're a required player?
Yeah, he did. I do remember all, quite clearly all of that. I remember having a meeting in at I can't remember the name of the pub. It was a pub in King Street with Peter Gordon, and Peter Gordon put forward his proposal about what he was planning on doing and how he was going to take the AFL on and the rest of it. And then it all just sort of rolled out with the remember being at some of those rallies, and the supporters were fantastic, and all the money that they raised, and everyone just donating what they could, and then as you said, Wheels was appointed coach and let me know that I was a required player, which was nice to know, and and we went on from there.
Unreal. So here we are. The 1990 season rolls in. You've got a new coach. The club survives, and we get a few players through the door. I know Danny Delray from Williamstown was brought in by Wheels, and we got a boy from Dalesford, a 17-year-old by the name of Chris Grant. So these players were, I imagine, playing similar positions to you, or a bit of competition. So I imagine it was pretty hot in the practice matches for competition. How did that all pan out?
It was, and I suppose Wheels spoke to me and he said, listen, I think there's a position for you down back, and so through the whole of the pre-season and back in those days too, we played 8 or 10 practice games. So it wasn't like you were just rolling into the season with a couple of practice games. It was it was pretty arduous through that whole period. So I managed to play most of those practice games with, as a defender, and then got to got Wheels. Remember him calling me to the office and telling me that I'd been selected for round 1, and so made my debut at the Whitten Oval in round 1, 1990 against St Kilda. Wasn't a great outcome for us, but and the same day, and obviously a lot spoken about Chris Grant, but he made his debut that day too.
So tell us a little bit about being in the rooms pre-match. I imagine the atmosphere and the anticipation would have been fever pitch. I was in the crowd that day. It was packed to the rafters. We had the Hyde Street Band. It was just like a carnival atmosphere. Can you remember the emotions and the nerves in the dugout?
Oh, listen, it was I don't, not specifically, but only that I do know it was I was very nervous, and you're going through the whole prep process to go out. And what I will say is that when I ran out of the on the ground, because that's in those days you never did a warm up on the ground. It was always in the rooms, and the first you actually heard of the noise was when you went down the race. And I remember going down the race and the noise, and I'm guessing the Whitten Oval that day, there was probably somewhere near 30,000 people there. Probably couldn't squeeze another one in, and it was the noise was just unbelievable.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of it was coming from my family, I'll tell you that much. We were excited to see you guys run out because we thought, that those days were over. So, so I know the result wasn't great, but just having you out there was magnificent. And I remember you coming out there. You had the number 47 Guernsey.
Yeah.
And is it right that you may have manned Rod Owen?
I did. I got a good introduction into AFL footy in those days when I ran towards him. He was the forward for St Kilda, and he I put my hand out to shake hands with him, and he blew his nose on me. So it was welcome to the big time.
Fantastic. All right, so here you are, the boy from Fish Creek. You've just got mucus all over you. You're excited though, and the ball was bouncing in and out of the St Kilda forward line. I remember that early, and Zeno Tatzaris was having a bit of a nightmare on Plugger Lockett. So I know that Terry Wheeler rung some changes that day. Don't tell me you were moved on to Plugger.
I can say in my first game I played on Plugger for a little period of time. It was only about 10 or 15 minutes, and I can say he didn't kick a goal, which was quite good given that I think he kicked 10 that day. So
unbelievable. Yeah, no, I do remember it. So there you are. What a debut. Despite not getting the chocolates, it was all happening, and you certainly held your own for the first 5 rounds, didn't you?
From round 1, we went to Sydney, and we played Sydney in round 2, and I think Leon Cameron debuted on that day, and just got a heap of the footy, and we had a fantastic win, and it was just a great day for the club, and with everything that had happened, I remember the excitement in the rooms after that particular game was fantastic. But so I enrolled through to round 4, and then. From memory, I think we played Carlton in round 5 on Anzac Day, which was obviously before the Collingwood Essendon traditional thing that is now. But it was just in one of those things. It was just a marking contest, and someone come across the side, and anyway, they broke my leg, and so that was the end of the season for me.
Wow, and am I right in saying on your way down to the change rooms, the Carlton supporters let you have a little bit of action as well?
Yeah, it was a bit of like I tell my kids about it now. Sometimes but we in the marking contest, the ball sort of ended up on the ground, and then a bloke called David Rees-Jones. There was a bit of I think Steve McPherson might have been in there as well, and there was a bit of just push and shove and whatever, and. Anyway, for whatever reason, I must have got blamed for it, because as I got carried off, I was going to off the boundary and sort of into the race, and someone decided I needed a can of Coke, so they launched a can of Coke at me.
On you in the back of the head, is this right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So it was welcome to Princes Park.
Welcome to Princes Park indeed, and I understand one of the flagpoles crashed into the roof of your change rooms as well while you're down there.
Yeah, that was like I didn't know actually what had happened, because I obviously went straight into the rooms. But as I came off, there was really quite a loud noise, and like almost thunder. And that was when the flagpole had come off the grandstand and rolled down into the group of supporters. So I didn't know much about what had happened after that, because I went down into the rooms. But that happened all at the same time.
Well, you'd be excused for thinking maybe you'd walked under a ladder there, Barry, but. 1991 rolled through, and you were again plagued by injuries, and it curtailed most of your season. However, 1992, what a breakout year for you, and a memorable campaign from the club. Can you recall that particular season and how it kicked off?
Yeah, well, maybe not so much how it kicked off, but I do remember I played in I think I played round one in 1991, and whether I got injured or dropped, I can't remember, but I certainly was injured a lot through the year, and it was a really frustrating year for me. I was playing in the reserves and going okay, and then I managed to get back into the team for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 games or thereabouts, and then we rolled into 92, and fortunately I was able to lock down a position and was able to to run through 92, and I think I played nearly every game, so through 92 and going into the final series, which was amazing, and it was it's probably one of those things as a young guy. In some ways, you look back and you think, did you give it as much credit as what it actually should have been? And the going from where we were to reaching a preliminary final in 92 was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it absolutely was, and I'd love to hear a little bit about that final series in a moment. But in round 9 of that season against Brisbane, you slammed through your very first goal of your career. Can you remember kicking that one, and what happened?
I think if it's a right one, that I just got lucky. I think it might have been a kick from full back or something like that, and I got it anyway. And I kicked it. I do know that a good mate of mine, Mark Hunter, was pretty happy because it put the margin over for us. So it was that was pretty nice. But no, it was in those days. Obviously, I'd played a few games and hadn't got forward much. So it was got in the right place at the right time, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've just alluded to the final series. It was the first time since 1985 that we made the final. So the supporters were up and about. We're certainly excited. Training was packed, I recall. Do you remember that September?
Yeah, I do. It was coming to training and seeing the whole of the EJ Whitten stand and along that wing there that was just full of supporters. It was and you're thinking, God, this is it's Tuesday night training. So they were certainly all up and about, and and we lost that first final, and then went to Waverley. Waverley was always a bit of a cold, miserable place, and from memory, we played St Kilda that day, and had a terrific win, and which put us into the preliminary final. So. It was a great experience.
Yeah, and in that semi-final you speak about against the Saints, they had a very famous tall brigade. We mentioned Tony Lockett, but he was joined by Stewie Lowe. It might have been Laser Vidovic. There were a few pretty big boys. Who did you take, and how did you go?
I'm not sure. I know I played on Stewie Lowe quite a bit, but on that particular day, I'm not sure. From memory, I think I may have started on the bench that day and come onto the ground at some point during the game. But I'm guessing it was probably when I came on, it was probably Stewie Lowe.
Tell us a little bit about some of those big battles, because that era was just absolutely littered with incredible centre-half forwards, weren't there? And I imagine you got a lot of them. Tell us about some of those massive battles.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that you look back now and you look at the and the names that you're able to play, on the same field against number one, and then to play actually, man them up as number two. And so, as you mentioned, Stewie Lowe was terrific. Stephen Kernahan, when I first started at Carlton, Gary Ablett was obviously playing. Wayne Carey was enormous through those times, and I think he might have enjoyed playing on me, to be honest. But but anyway, it was fantastic to be able to do that. And even I look back and blokes like Roger Merritt that when I first started that had gone to Brisbane, and it was the learning curve for you, because you're doing a boundary throw in against him, and he would teach you how to get someone out of the way. So I was just really fortunate that I was able to to play on those sort of guys.
Yeah, Peter Foster, who sort of had the centre half back position around your time or just before you came along, spoke about playing on blokes like Kernahan and Dermot Brereton, and he said Dermot used to really get in his ear and try and ruffle his feathers. His game was to just block it out and not be roped into that. How did you sort of handle some of those different flamboyant characters?
Yeah, a lot of the same. I mean, it was trying not to to get I guess caught up in what they were trying to tell you they were going to do and how they were going to do it, and just try and play the game and play it on its merits, and they're terrific players, and the game was played in that day. I remember playing on Kerry, and the famous Pagan paddock where you're just left exposed and it's 1-on-1, and it might sound silly, but you could win 50% of the contest, but he would still kick 6 goals because of the way the game was played. So I think I was probably exaggerating there. I probably never won 50% of the contest, but but anyway, it's you know what I mean. It was a great experience, and they were they were just great memories.
You've just touched on 1992. It wasn't to be, but 1993 came along. There was great promise. I understand that at that time, Terry Wheeler was always trying to be really quite creative and inventive, and he decided pre-season to take you boys up above Port Phillip Bay in a plane. What was he thinking?
Well, I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. It's we actually went out to an army camp out sort of northeast of Melbourne, and that was when he told us all out there that okay, we're so tomorrow we're going out to Pakenham and we're going to learn all about how to skydive, and then on Sunday early morning we're going to get up and we're going to jump out of the plane. So it was so we got on the bus on Saturday morning and went out to Pakenham, and I will say this is that the guys who were instructing us were fantastic, and they were they were just telling us how easy it is and don't worry about anything. And anyway, so meanwhile the first group of parachuters jump out that day, and one guy came in a bit low and a bit right in front of us and crashed into the ground. And and so listen, I don't know what ended up of him, but I will say that the air ambulance and everything came out. So it was what it was for us. It was if they weren't nervous enough, it was after that happened. After that happened, I think there was a few guys, me included, that were thinking, what are we doing? But all that said and done, I mean, we probably did it in the safest way you could do it, in that the chutes that we used and the way that we did it on the static line. So it was a great experience, and it was one of those things that I remember in my group, because we jumped out in groups of 4, and I think Simon Atkins went out first, and I just remember him disappearing out of the plane, and you shuffle forward and jump out yourself, and then I think it might have been Nigel Kellett that came out after me, and then Danny Delray, and I remember just looking across and seeing Danny, and he was going the opposite direction, so he must have been in a wind thing that was taking him further out to sea. But it was it was a remarkable experience, and in terms of all the guys coming together and as an activity that you could do that could bond you, I think it was an accumulation of a really strong pre-season and what we did there. So it was it was good.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, you survived, and it obviously had its impact, because early on that season we took on one of the flag fancies, Carlton, down at Princes Park. And early in that match, you might recall our Brownlow medalist, Scotty Wine, went down with a pretty serious injury. And that thrust an unlikely hero into the hot seat. Barry, can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, it was as you said, it was really early in the game, and it was Scotty got hit and I think concussed quite badly, and then so I went into the ruck on that particular day, and I'm about 6'3", and Justin Madden's about 6'10" or thereabouts. So you're up against it. I'm not sure that I won many hit outs in the centre bounce, but managed to get my hands on the ball quite a bit around the ground. And yeah, as you said, we had a fantastic win that day. It was a really memorable day. A memorable day for me because it was probably a game that that I felt that I was at that level.
Well, at that level, you had 21 kicks, 21 possessions, you had 11 marks, and you were everywhere that day, and were instrumental. Most of the media gave you 3 votes that day, and you got us across the line in an epic. And fans still speak about that. It was an unreal win.
Yeah, no, it was. It was a fantastic win, and it was obviously great memories for myself. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, 1993 wasn't to be, as it turned out. We just missed out on finals, and there was a changing of the guard, wasn't there, towards the end of the year? There were Choco Royal did his Achilles. Obviously Peter Foster was at the end of it as well with his own injuries and battles. So in came some new players. We had the likes of Richard Osborne and the great Brad Johnson came in through the door. Yeah. Was this a time that optimism through this changing of the guard was restored?
Yeah, I think we felt that we had a side that was certainly capable. We as you mentioned, I mean, it was the end of an era for a number of those players that you mentioned, and I think Rowan Smith was another one that came in around that time as well. That went on to become a super player. So I think that we entered into '94 certainly with a degree of optimism.
Yeah, we did indeed. But by the end of round 2, there was a death knock on the coach's shoulder, wasn't there? And Terry Wheeler was replaced by Alan Joyce. We didn't see it coming. How did the players take that?
Yeah, it was. Listen, it was one of those things that we'd set ourselves up, to have a really strong pre-season and then roll into the season proper. And we come to round 1, and I think we got turned over by 10 goals plus. It was and then again in round 2, and then that coupled with a couple of poor results in what was a night series, and then they made the decision that Wheels was going to be moved on, which for me, I wasn't aware that was going to happen, obviously. And you're told after the fact that it's played out. And I will say back, you mentioned about Joyce here. It was chalk and cheese when so Wheels was very much a teacher type coach. He was very much of the mould of your practice and repetition, and so there was 50, 60 footies out on the field, and you had 100 kicks at training each night, and it was all about repetition. And then Joyce came in, and he walks out on the track with all of us, and carries 1 footy, and he says, "Here we go, let's do training." And so we got used to training with with a couple of footies, and so he was certainly different. What you could call old school in those days, and but he did have he had a resolve about him that was it was about team and playing together and working together to achieve something, and I think that through that '94 season was what probably got us to where we were.
Having Joyce come through the door, he was a premiership coach at Hawthorn, so he was a man of integrity, and we started to get our momentum going, didn't we? And by round 17, there was an enormous match. It was Dougie Hawkins' record-breaking match. He overtook Teddy Whitten, and speaking of carnival atmospheres, what a day that was! And you lined up against the champion from Braybrook.
Yeah, listen, it was I remember that day. I remember Hawk, running out on the ground and running with Ted that day, and it was an amazing day. It was Hawk's obviously a much loved figure through the Bulldogs, and I can only say I'm privileged to have played footy with him. It's amazing, but it really was a fantastic day,
Yeah. Well, we made finals, didn't we? And we came up against Cats, our bogey team, who had unceremoniously booted us out of the finals a couple of years earlier. However, on the qualifying final day in '94, it wasn't a one-way street, was it? Was it an epic encounter?
It was, and it was a great game to be involved in. I mean, they got out to a pretty quick start, and then we pegged them back, and and the replay comes on quite regularly about that one, and it's a game you look back on, and there's a couple of things you'd like to do differently in the last 25 seconds, but anyway, it is what it is. We can't change it.
Yeah, so I remember Mensch got the ball. It probably fell, the ball came out of the centre really quickly. Mensch got onto it and then passed it off, obviously, to Billy Brownless, didn't he? Was there much communication or panic going on in defence to try and flood that back at that time?
Oh, listen, it was. I mean, we came back to the centre, and it was all about just getting hold of the footy. But that I was actually in the ruck in that ruck contest, and and we lost the ball out of the centre, and it bounced their way, and it unfolded, and Billy, who hadn't had much of an influence on the game to that point, got on the end of a good kick, and, and the rest is history.
Yeah, it is indeed, and we ended up playing Melbourne the next week, and they destroyed us, didn't they, and knocked us out. So it wasn't to be. There were those two final series, and then I guess 1995 came along, and you were just Mr. Dependable. You played 21 games that season. A really consistent year. What are your recollections of your performance in that campaign?
Yeah, 95. I felt pretty comfortable at the level at that point. And I was it was pretty much as you said, I was playing every week, and I had a pretty reasonable season through 95. I suppose for me, I was 25 at that point in time, and I probably didn't realise that. I certainly didn't realise at that point in time that within a couple of years, my footy career at that level would be finished. So, it was one of those things. I was just going through through life as a footballer and the like, and enjoying footy, and anyway, we 96 rolled around.
96 rolled around. You're at the apex of your performance chart, really. A 25, 26-year-old, you've got the experience behind you, the mature body, and then round 3 comes along and disaster strikes, Barry. I know it's like opening a wound, but can you share what happened?
Yeah, well, it was a really it's an interesting one, because my kids read out. They get on Wikipedia and read out Wikipedia and say that in '96 I lost form and lost favour or whatever with the Bulldogs. I don't know who writes that on Wikipedia, but anyway, it's one of those things that round 3 I hurt my Achilles in our round 3 game, and anyway I at training, so it wasn't torn or anything, but and then I didn't train on early in the week, and I went out to train on Thursday night, thinking I was going to be okay, and I just remember getting a Scotty Wind actually handballed the ball to me, and I just pressed off, and then my Achilles snapped. So it that was the end of the season for me.
Wow, terrible. Well, if Bulldog fans are watching this, I'd like you to jump on Wikipedia now and change that right away. So the Stanfield family, if you're watching, get on there now, and I'm sure it's changed.
I don't think it matters too much, but anyway.
We'll fix that up, Barry. So 96, I guess you're sitting in the sidelines, but I understand that you got an opportunity then to go up in the coach's box and spend a little bit of time up there with Plough and see the game from a different perspective. Can you tell us a bit about that, please?
Yeah, I did, and listen, it was one of those things, and I was wrapped with Plough when he obviously took over about mid-season from Joycey, and Plough. One of the first things he did is he asked me to come and sit in the box with him, and and get a feel for the game that way, and it was just a great insight into what goes on, and the discussions around the game, and what they're looking for, and Yeah, it was. I really enjoyed that through that period. It was as I said, it was a great insight for me.
Yeah, so and I understand, you turn to coaching yourself, not only in the women's game, but also the under 17.5 boys that you're currently coaching with as well. Have you taken a little bit of plough or a little bit of your other coaches, Mickey Malthouse, with you?
I listen in all of those. So you take bits and pieces from everybody, and you're constantly learning. And I'm coaching the boys again this year, and it's a challenge. I've had this particular group for the last couple of years now, and they've come through the different ages. And as they get older, it becomes more of a challenge each year dealing with their personalities. But it's there's certainly. I remember my first day in the box with Plough, and just looking at the game and what was unfolding in the game, and what we could do to perhaps get an edge, and that was Plough for my experience anyway. About him as a coach, he was always looking for how can we get that edge on the opposition, what matchups can we exploit, and that type of thing. So it was it was a great insight.
Unreal. And you weren't in the box on the day that he had the famous "I'll spew up" call by any chance?
Oh no, I was. That was actually at the MCG. That was because that year they had the guys in that were filming the Year of the Dog, and that production. So it was. I was in the rooms that day when when we got beaten, and and the spew up speech, which has been is now one of the famous lines, I think, in footy. So.
I imagine you would have felt the paint peeling off the walls being in the room and not knowing where to look.
Yeah, we all see it now on the when you watch the that show, but it was as good a spray as you can get, and I think he left every player in the room with very much certainty about how he felt.
I'll spew up.
Yeah, he certainly did. Were you ever on the end of a spray from any of your coaches? Can you recall any absolute rippers that happened to you or a teammate?
Listen, it wasn't actually at the Bulldogs, but I will recall that I probably got as good a spray as I reckon any player's ever got from Malcolm Blight. When I was playing at Adelaide, and I did a silly thing in that one thing led to another, and I ended up pretty much in the forward 50 by myself, and got the ball and ran into the open goal and did a silly thing and turned around and waved it to the guys coming at me. Like Mark Jacko Jackson style, and anyway, so I will say it was in early on in the game, and Blighty gave me a spray at quarter time. He gave me another one at half time, another one at 3/4 time, and another one after the game. And then he didn't miss me on Monday night at the review. He gave me another spray. That's probably as good as I've got.
No good there. Well, you and pathetic Pittman, obviously on the end of a couple of barrages. I wouldn't like that, that's for sure. Now, speaking of the Crows, 1996 ended, and incredibly, you weren't offered a contract, I understand, by the Dogs, and Adelaide.
Yeah. Well, listen, it was a bit of a strange process, if you like, because. I was in constant communication with the club, and I kept on being told that an offer is coming, and we're putting it together, and blah blah blah, and all the rest of it. And I wasn't even concerned that I wasn't going to be offered a contract. And it was when Port Adelaide had come into the competition, and if you remember, they made a big play for Chris Grant at that point, and I think the club probably had a lot of their focus on retaining him, and rightfully so. And so whether I was just probably put on the back burner or whatever it was, but in any case, Adelaide rang me and made contact with me and put an offer on the table to me and asked me what my thoughts were, and I went back to the club a few times around what's happening with an offer, and so I probably had a firm offer on the table from Adelaide, and I had nothing was being presented from the Bulldogs. So I said to the Crows, "Yep, well, if you can get a deal done, I'll come." And I do have regrets about that, it was I have no regret, and I actually have caught up with Plough in recent times, because one of my main regrets was I should have spoken to Plough, and I'm probably pretty sure if I had have, maybe it would have been different. But that's water under the bridge, as they say. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, if we had had you in that 97 prelim final, it might have been a different story, and we might have another cup in our trophy cabinet.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things, isn't it? Because at that point, I'd gone to the Crows, and as it had turned out, I'd actually hurt my I'd torn my left Achilles at the Bulldogs, and then I'd hurt my right Achilles at the Crows in that season, and after playing sort of the majority of the first sort of 2/3 of the season, missed it. Had to give my Achilles a rest, and then try and get back into the Crows team. So I was emergency through those final series with the Crows, and and then the famous game against the Bulldogs, where Libba still believes it's a goal, and I think a lot of Bulldog supporters were probably siding with him, and it was deemed to not be, and the Crows went on and won a flag that year.
Well, you have a foot in both camps, so I'm going to ask you, what was the feeling with the players in the rooms reflecting on whether that was a goal or a behind? Tony says absolutely uncategorically that it was straight through.
Oh, listen, I think that it was one of those calls that could have gone either way. I don't think they would have been shocked if it had gone the other way. And for the Crows' point of view, it was one of those things that it fell their way on that day. It's one of those things, and it's you look back on it, and how pivotal, I suppose, something like that can be, in an outcome of a season.
Yeah, indeed. It was still a scarring one until 2016 came along. That was just a reoccurring nightmare. So, so I couldn't imagine what it would have felt like for you, a player who, was right on the cusp of playing in a premiership there as an emergency. Did you leave that season feeling unfulfilled looking back, or was it just part of your story?
Oh, listen, it was no doubt at all for me. It was a huge disappointment to not play. Does it define you as a player because you played in a premiership? It's always tagged beside your name, I guess. But so I certainly would have loved to have, but it didn't happen. Do I think about it every day? No, I don't. I mean, it's life moves on, and it's a part of football, and it's the same as me breaking my leg in after 5 games of footy, and me tearing my Achilles 2 games short of 100 with the Bulldogs. So it's one of those things that's that's footy, and that's your lot in life sometimes.
Yeah, it's written in history now, absolutely. But Bulldog fans would have loved to have seen you go out there and represent, because you certainly gave your all for the Doggies, and no one would have begrudged that. That's for sure. Can I ask you as well? You played 1 game against the Doggies in '97. You snagged 5 goals against us. Was this a way of you saying, there you are, look what you've missed out on?
Oh, listen, it was obviously you're competitive, and I'd gone from most of my footy at the Bulldogs was playing in defence with a spattering of games either on ball or forward. And then to the Crows, where they used me in that position forward. So we had a good day that day. We're talking about when I was playing at the Crows, and I was able to get on the end of a few, and so it was a good day. It was probably a day for me to say, well, I'm still capable here at this level.
So here it is. 1998 came along. Injuries struck for the final time and ended things for you. Looking back, what are you most proud of?
Listen, I'll just touch on there on 98. It's one of those things, because I at the end of 97 I had to have some surgery on my Achilles, and then so I missed most of the pre-season in 98. and then you're putting a lot of work into a short period of time to get yourself up and ready and to be available for round one. And it was one of those things in round one, and this is sliding doors moments of footy, because I remember Matty Robran at the Crows was under a fitness cloud and had to pass a fitness test, and if he passed, he'd play. If he didn't, well, I was going to play round one, and he passed the fitness test, and I went and played with Sturt in the SANFL, and I had a pretty good game with Sturt, and then like sort of, I think it was about 5 minutes before the end of the game, I ripped my hamstring really badly, and it was like a 14-week injury. So it was, and I have to say, from that was probably at that point in time I'd got involved in a business and commenced work, working in a business, and it was taking off, and it was my focus probably shifted more to that. And I'd made the decision sort of halfway through the year that footy at that level had finished for me, and that was the way it was. So when you talk about proud moments, and I look back on I was able to play 100 games, which I would class myself as a battler and someone who had a go. That was probably a reasonable outcome, but I do think about if I hadn't have got injured, what may have been with certainly about playing a few more games, but that's life.
That's life indeed. But you know what, you made some incredible memories and friendships. Who are your favourite teammates and the best players you played with?
I mean, as I touched on before, from an opposition point of view, I played on some of the greats of the game, and against some of the greats of the game. So, and then you talk about at the Bulldogs, like to be able to go run out in the first game with Dougie Hawkins, with Brian Royal, with Steve Wallace, with Peter Foster, with Scott Wind. Mark Hunter was a tremendous player. Great memories to be able to play, say that you played footy with these guys, and a young Brad Johnson was coming through, Scotty West was coming through, and Rowan Smith, as I mentioned before. I mean, all sort of legends of the club. So to be able to play with those was I was really happy, and I look back on it, and if I have one regret, it's the regrets are that around injuries and missing games, but you can't change that. So move on.
Absolutely, well said, Barry. And you obviously moved back into country footy, and had some success. You returned to Fish Creek, I understand, and was part of Premiership glory. I know you even slammed through 11 goals in round one of the 2001 season. You won the best and fairest in the league. So you know what, you really showed your wares.
Yeah, it was an interesting time for me, to be honest. It was after I'd had a lot of injuries, and then had a couple of seasons out of the AFL environment, and there's a lot of things that happened in our family's life in the year 2000, and namely being my father had a heart attack and died at the tender age of 56, and it was a massive shock to us as a family, and so my two brothers, we sort of spoke about playing at Fish Creek and playing together, and that's what Dad probably would have liked. So and we did, and as you said, I had a reasonable season, and I was probably, for the first time for a number of years, I actually felt reasonable in my body. I felt fit again, and had a pretty reasonable season there, and we won the premiership and won it again the next year. So it was fond memories.
So not winning it at the highest level, is it fulfilling to go back to country footy, play with your family, and to hold that cup aloft?
Oh, no doubt it is. It's you're in a team environment, you're playing with good mates, and and family members as well, and it's not the pinnacle of playing on the MCG and holding the Premiership Cup at the MCG, but it's still very exciting. And as I said, great memories of those days when we were able to win. So
beautiful, Barry. Awesome. I love it. I love it. You're a Bulldog supporter still today, or did you go back to your roots?
I actually followed. I grew up following Collingwood, but then yeah, exactly. But because we were in the in that zoning area that I spoke about before, we ended up with a number of players that so Steve Wallace came to. And so I knew of him from Leongatha, and Gary Walpole from Fish Creek came to the Bulldogs. So I started following the Bulldogs probably when I was 12 or 13, and have pretty much followed them ever since. So so I'm certainly a Bulldogs supporter.
Were you at the grand final 2016?
I was. I managed to take one of my daughters down to the game, and we actually got around into the rooms after the game, which was just absolutely amazing.
Wow, that's unreal, Barry. Love that. Love it. Love it. Well, look, we're coming really close to the end of the podcast now, but without a word of warning, as we do with all our guests to end the show, we have a 60-second Bulldog quiz. So I'm putting you back in the hot seat, Barry. You played on Wayne Carey, but this is going up next level.
All right, this will be interesting.
This will be interesting.
Go easy.
Go easy. I'll tell you what, I'll give you two categories. You can choose from one, all right? So we'll give you a little bit of power. You can either choose Bulldog players starting with the letter W or the 1990s.
All right, I'll go with the 90s.
The 90s. I thought you might. Okay, fantastic. Good luck. Tony Liberatore won the 1990 Charles Sutton Medal. Is that true or false?
That is false.
False. It was Peter Foster. James Cook won the club's 97 goal kicking award. Is that true or false?
That is true.
False. It was Minton Connell. The Bulldogs won more matches than they lost during the 1990s. Is that true or false?
I'm going to say true.
True, 56%. Which year did Steve Wallace retire?
I'm going to say 96.
You're on fire. Which team did the Bulldogs play in their first match after the Fight Back campaign in 1990?
St Kilda.
You got it. Who wore the number 19 for the Dogs between 93 and 95?
Luke Beveridge.
Oh, who won the 1993 Best and Fairest?
I'm going to say Leon Cameron.
Oh, you're killing it. Name the two dog captains of the 1990s. There are only two.
Scott Wind and Doug Hawkins.
You've got it. And how many goals did the Dogs kick in the final quarter? This is right on the siren here. So I'll ask the question. How many goals did the Dogs kick in the final quarter of the 1997 prelim match against the Crows?
I'm going to say 4.
No, I'm sorry. I tell you what, every Dog supporter watching this would have hoped we kicked 4 because we would have been in the grand final had we have done that. We actually kicked 0. Barry.
Oh, 0. There we go.
0. Yeah, we kicked 0 goals, 6. It was the only quarter for the entire season that we didn't score a goal, believe it or not. So there it is. But you know what, Barry, you've absolutely destroyed the quiz today. I'm going to put the scores up right now and see where you are against all the other past players. Here it comes now, and you're on top of the ladder. You've jumped over the top of Luke Darcy. I love it.
Unbelievable. There you go. I think I might have got lucky.
Well, you've done brilliantly well. And can I just say, if you stay at the top by the end of the season, you actually play Dougie Hawkins in September, and the winner of the final actually wins a painted portrait of themselves. So it could be you, Barry, at the top.
There we go. I'll look forward to it. Taking on Dougie, maybe.
Absolutely. We just want to ask you one final question. Do you have a final message for Bulldog supporters who loved and admired you over the years, and a message for them?
Oh, listen, I just say, I thank you to all the supporters. It's when you're playing and you're there and you're in the moment, it's easy to almost take them for granted. But one of the things as you get older and you realise and everything they did and the support they provide, it's amazing. It's what makes a game, and it's they're very passionate supporters. They're fantastic, and I got great memories of my time there and the support that I was given, and I say thank you to them.
Well, We want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts. What an incredible story and journey. 98 games for the Doggies, and we loved every moment of your story. So thanks so much, and all the best on behalf of every Bulldog supporter.
Thank you very much, and a great opportunity to have a chat with you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, Barry Stanfield.
Red in my heart, white in my veins, blue in my eye, red, white, and blue in my brain. I'm